So hello everyone. I'm very happy today to introduce you to Andrea Clusen. Andrea is a advanced rolfer, and are you also a teacher, rolfing teacher?
Yes, I am.
She's also a rolfing teacher and also a teacher of ScarWork. And also other things. Maybe did I miss something? What are you also doing, Andrea? What is it like your trainings and maybe some other things which I missed?
Yeah, I also give other workshops in relation to structural integration.
So we are having in May our workshop with ScarWork in Bratislava. Could you introduce to our listeners what is ScarWork?
Yeah. So ScarWork is a manual approach to scars, to any kind of scars that are on the skin. And it was developed by Sharon Wheeler, who was a student of Dr. Rolf in the late 1960s somehow. And then Sharon more accidentally stumbled upon how to treat scars. And when we in ScarWork talk about scars, we're not primarily thinking of the scar that you see on the skin, but all that's underneath. So all that's hidden underneath. So like the deep scar structure that came from the surgery. So if you think about, I don't know, a hip surgery, you have the scar on the hip, which in the latest years, actually the surgeons managed to do quite nice scars, so they don't look very dramatic, but the action, so that's where they actually had the surgery, is around the hip joint. So the scar reaches into the bones also, and all around the hip joint area and all the structures they had to move away in order to insert the prosthesis. So all this has a residue of scar tissue. Sometimes it's very severe, it's very bumpy and stringy and hard underneath. Sometimes it's a little softer. The amazing thing is that even though there is a lot of research on scars, no one knows why scars develop in the way they do and why they are so individual. So if Marco and me had the same surgery on the same day by the same surgeon on the same place, we would have completely different scar afterwards. From the outside, it might look the same, but in the depth, both of our systems would be completely different. So, and with ScarWork, what we trust is what we feel, because that's the only reality that we have. We all know from body work that we can touch the skin, so we touch the surface, and everything underneath actually is an interpretation. So we learned how bones feel under the skin, we learned how muscle feels under the skin, how maybe tendons feel. So we are quite certain when we touch a person where we are in terms of topography in the body. With scars, since we don't know how it developed, we only know what happened because of the story the client is telling us. We have a bit of an idea how far the tissue would spread. And sometimes it's amazing how far, for example, the hip surgery could spread in a more dense and more firm elastin and other fibers, collagen fibers, that could reach down to the knee or even the foot. And you can trace that with your hand. So when you have learned that a little bit, you will feel to where the big network of what is related to that surgery reaches out. So that is what we're doing in ScarWork. It's a very gentle approach, which is amazing that this gentle, friendly, non-violent approach towards the whole scar tissue has such a profound effect. So we're not trying to get rid of anything. So we're not tearing on it. We don't rub on it hard. Actually, that's all good tissue. The body had a lot of effort to building up this strong tissue to maintain the wounded area, to bring it back together again. But most of the time it's a little clumped up, so it's like hypertrophic on that area, and we try to distribute it a bit better, and that we have more flow of body liquids and also weight transmission, force transmission through these areas and not around it.
I really like this change of mind or change of perspective. A scar isn't something bad, which
No.
right? Because we often have this connotation of scars, like we have this negative approach, or we pity someone when has some scars. But it's actually like a way how the body heals, or yeah, we could have like a holder basically, but yeah, we have like it's somehow connected and holds together. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So I heard that the scars is also going into the tissues and it spreads and it somehow changes the force transmission, weight transmission. So scars are basically somehow changing biomechanics, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
And in your, is there also a possibility to somehow have a? I know that we can have like a solo scar session, right? Which is focus on like a huger or bigger scar. But we can also have like integrate this work to our, let's say, physiotherapy or some massage work or even rolfing, which we're both doing, right?
Mhm.
Can you tell me how you do it, or how would you somehow
Yeah,
rate
yeah.
it?
So the really astounding thing about Sharon's approach to scar work is that every change that happens, so every release in that deep tissue stays. You don't have to repeat that. Everything that released is released, and even gets better after you've had your hands there and worked on it. So it accumulates. So and in a way you could do, if you're a physiotherapist in Germany, they work 20 minutes, so the time is very limited. So you could dedicate like 5 minutes or 10 just on the scar, and then you still have 10 minutes for your physiotherapy, which also integrates a little bit the changes that you have achieved already. So you could do small installments, and over time they also accumulate and they will also change the scar. Of course, if you have a big scar and it was a big story, it would make sense, especially if you're a rolfer and you have an hour's time, for people to say, even within the 10 series, you could say, well, you have that big scar on your hip and I'm going to do the 3rd hour or the 5th or whatever you have. And I think it would be good to work on the scar first to release all the scar tissue that is there, and then continue with the series. So you have different options. You can do a little bit, but then you have less of what you usually do, or you just invite the person to really take care in 1 long hour or in 40 minutes and work on it. It's just when you are a massage therapist and you're used to work with oil or substances, that doesn't blend in so well, because we work on the dry skin, because that is where you actually really feel what's going on. And even the surface of the skin is changing while we do scar work. So it also the cutis, really the skin, is changing. And if you have some moisturizer on it or oil, you miss that tissue quality. If you have a burn scar, it's usually very dry, but it's a good indicator as a scar worker when it becomes a bit more hydrated, which you would also miss if there was oil or something, another product on it.
Mhm.
So there, for massage therapists or people who use some substances, maybe you would do that in the beginning of a session before you used anything, and then continue working.
Interesting. And we were talking about also the scars. Could a scar affect also the physiology or some internal functions of the body? I don't know, like digestion or maybe like breathing. It depends on the type of scars, but are you familiar with some
Yeah.
changes?
So we can never predict before what's going to happen, if it's going to be releasing something in the organs. But as an example, I had one client who, as a child, had a surgery on the belly, on the intestine. I don't recall what was made, but there was that scar that was going from above the navel, around the navel, and then deeper down. And everything was pulled in and very tight and very short. But she was used to it, so she lived with that. And she really appreciated, or she really liked to eat salad, so fresh, raw vegetable. But it was always hard for her to digest it. So she always knew, okay, I like that carrot salad, but I will think about it for the next 2 days because it's going to be troublesome for my body. It did work, but it was difficult. So then she asked me if I could work on the scar just out of curiosity, and to take a bit of that pull, because she also had the feeling it's pulling her trunk together. So it's something, it's not the belly muscles that are pulling, it's the scar that's pulling her a little in a bent position. So I worked on the scar. She could lift a little better. And when she came next time, she said, you know what? I can eat my beloved salad, all the raw vegetable without any trouble. Do you think that comes from ScarWork? I said, I don't know, but it sounds like it. That's something that there was like a holding around part of the intestine. So some scar tissue that was squeezing the intestine a little bit so that the passage was restricted. It was not blocked, but restricted. And that was free now, so things could pass through, and it's very happy. And that remained for the next year. So I saw her a couple of years later again. And the scar even got better and better and released, and the belly was softer. So that's one story. And I have another story for you, because you asked me before about stories. And especially for a structural integrator, it's a very nice story. So if you know what pelvic tilt is, so we have an anterior or a posterior tilt, and in Rolfing we try to horizontalize the pelvis or maybe have a bit of an anterior tilt. And I have one client, she took the 10 series, and every time after the session she had a nice position of the pelvis, but within the next days she always went back to a posterior tilt. She couldn't fight that pattern, and she was really trying hard, and we tried all sorts of things, movement, awareness, what have you, everything. So when I took the workshop with Sharon Wheeler in 2015, I had clients booked in for the following week, because I thought, well, that's something new, so I have to work on scars to get familiar with it. I actually didn't believe that we could change them, but nevertheless, I thought I'd just book in a few people who have severe scars. And she had a cesarean scar. It was very small, it was healed nicely, it was almost invisible, and she said, I have no problem at all. So I had her there. I explained a little bit what we do in ScarWork. So I also got familiar in explaining it to people, and she knew me. So there was a lot of trust, because you work underneath the line of the underwear, which we usually don't. So you go a little deeper. So I worked maybe 40 minutes, and I found also scars that are a little deeper, because a cesarean is actually 4 scars. It's the skin, it's the muscular layer, it's the peritoneum, and it's the uterus. So they are all open separately, and then they have to be closed, and they are not one on top of each other. They are either crisscross or staggered, so that they don't grow together as one big scar. So I found a few adhesions here and there, and I just, with my beginner's mind, just worked along a little bit. And after the session, she stood up, and I actually didn't see it because I was looking at the scar. And then she said, you know what, Andrea, what you always tried to teach me with the pelvis, now I know what you mean. Look at me. And she was perfect. So the pull that we had was coming from the front to the spine. So there was something around the scar that was inhibiting the pelvis to find a comfortable neutral position. And as I say, it was a scar that didn't make any trouble from the beginning to the day I saw the woman, and she never considered anything could change from that. So of course, since then, I do work on also very well healed scars, just to make sure they don't inhibit biomechanics function, organic function, in the organs also. And it doesn't matter how old the scars are. Maybe that's also important. So if the scar is 5 years or 20 or 40 years, they all change.
Yeah, I had also a similar experience with a cesarean scar with a client of mine, and we were doing sessions and so on. And I didn't want it to do the cesarean scar because I'm a man and she's a woman. On like, I saw it as an issue from the beginning. I was like, we do it later when we have this better relationship. I was like, okay, maybe now it's time. And then she started believing me, and okay, let's do the session. And it was incredible. Her digestion was better. Her posture was better. She always couldn't have this. Also, this nice anterior tilt, she was somehow blocked. Really, I saw it like always like a contraction in the abdominal rectus. It was my feeling in my eyes. After that, it was amazing, and it stayed like that for maybe even for today. I'm not sure. It's an amazing result, really, with scars. And also in my case, I have a couple of scars, and I found that working on the scars makes really my hand. I had like a broken hand. It made it much more sensitive, and I had a numb more feeling in my hand, and afterwards it was much more clear every information which I got from touching something. All right. So, well, I had like a really traumatic injury on my say not ankle, but it's the wrist. So I broke my wrist, and it was yeah, I was doing sports, so it meant a lot to me. And so there is this level in humans that is more like psychosocial, I would say. How do you see the meaning of the scar for us humans in the context of ScarWork? So do we just only work, or we should consider working on the tissue, or should we also consider like, okay, this is maybe we are working maybe on some emotional traumatic also even inside of the person?
Well, I would say every scar has a history, and that is from not so severe to very profound. And it doesn't mean a big scar is more profound than a small one. Even a small injury can have a big impact. And then I actually let my clients talk. So if they come for having me work on the scar and it's their decision, it's not that I convince them to work on the scar. I just offer that. I said, well, listen, I can do something. If you want to, just let me know. That brings me and also the client to a point where the scar is ready to be worked on in all that's connected to it. And that includes the psychosomatic effects. Also in workshops, I tell my participants, never convince a model that we have there that you could also work on that shoulder scar and they don't want to, and you convince them. Usually that is a scar that emotionally is not ready to be, the whole story about it is not ready yet to go to the next level. And then you might actually re-traumatize people. So I'm careful in offering it. And when people say, yeah, well, I think work on it. And if there is a story connected that maybe they told me the story before, like with your wrist, maybe that you know already, it's meaningful, emotional, I would ask you to tell me if you need a break during the session. If you have the feeling now a lot of emotions are coming up, we don't have to hurry. It's not because we don't do it today, something bad happens. So we could stop there, could say, okay, that's how far we can go, and we can do it, I would say, in a graceful way, in a very elegant way. We just, acknowledge the pace that your entire system can heal around your scar. And I only know when it's when we are on the session. So I can't really predict it before, but I can prepare my clients saying it might be that memories come up. And yeah.
I had once a lady, and she had like she had a traumatic accident. She was on a hill, and she fell like 400 meters. She was rolling down, so she had several broken bones, which were pointing out the skin, and of course a lot of scratch scars. So, for example, the belly there, it wasn't like the skin was like burned or torn like this on the belly, and it was amazing. She approached me. She wants to work on the scars. I was like, okay. We had like 5 or 6 sessions because it was like scars on the hip, on the ankle, on the arm, on the belly. It was like a lot of things. And she was also in like a psychological process, parallel. So that was very nice because there was a lot of shaking, crying. Wow, it was incredible, crying and crying. Yeah, it was wow, it was an immense experience for me too. And it was actually on the start when I had like the training with you, and it was like the third or fourth person, and I had this profound, extreme experience which you can have as a body worker. I was like, oh my god, this was incredible. And I remember we took it like also easy. Okay, we do this a bit, like 40 minutes. Okay, and that's it. And when she needed some break, I also needed break me, you know. I was like, oh my God, it's a bit energetic also for me in a way, emotional, because I was very empathic with her about the approach.
Mm-hmm. You know, but sometimes there are people who had, I mean, I had one guy who had a car crash and he wasn't causing it. He was just somehow caught up in that car crash, and his car was squeezed and they had to cut him out. And obviously he was talking to the people. He doesn't remember that. So he was also stepping out of the car himself, but then he collapsed. So they brought him to hospital and examined him, and it looked fine in the beginning, and then his liver failed. All of a sudden, the liver stopped. And he was very lucky because they had a spare liver which fitted to his body. So when he woke up after 5 days of coma, they induced a coma then, he had a new liver. He had a big scar and he didn't remember. He just remembered the accident and nothing else. And he came to me, and even though that is a story that, you know, I have goosebumps on my back even telling the story, he was completely fine with that. He thought, oh, you can work on scars. Could you work on, because it looks a bit funny. So I was working on it and there was nothing whatsoever. I mean, it must have been profound, waking up with a liver that's not your own. Since he survived, had the feeling he was given another life. He could have died just by a non-dramatic car accident. It wasn't a big one. It was just squeezed. So he was in a complete different place, you know, after a severe accident. So we can never generalize, because it was a story that frightens us. It does something to the people. And sometimes it's really small. It's a small scar on the lip that was caused by, I don't know, something small, but it has a very big meaning to people. And you think, well, it's just, you know, a small one. No, it's, you only know once you start working, you get a feeling for if you have to pace it a little slower, talk to the person. And yeah, as a scar worker, I know I will, when the session is over, the scar will look better and feel better than before. So since I have the experience, I know this, which makes it a bit more of a safer space for the people. There is someone who is trustful and trustworthy, hopefully. So, because they are a bit anxious when they come, and usually people don't like their scars, and I think that's natural. We just don't love them. But usually people come to terms. So some people don't even want to touch their scar. It's really an avoidance, like excluding from when we ask them in the beginning to touch their scar once more because it will change in the next minutes. They usually don't like it, but after a session, that's also a profound change when they start touching it and they can't stop touching it anymore. They keep on touching that area, so they start to include that, they integrate it into their being, not just into the fascial network. That's also emotional, social.
And is there a possibility also to change the look of the scar, or is just the biomechanics, possibility of changing the biomechanics of the body?
So very often the look of the scar does change. So if there are hard bits, we have techniques to make them softer. Some scars are, when you pull on them in the lengths they are not elastic, they're like stiff. When they get more elastic, the color changes. If they're sometimes after years, they are still red or very pale, or they have multiple colors, they become skin color again. So they, as I say, we can't predict that it's going to happen, but it's very likely that it's not only the change in the deep, that this reflects up to the top, and also because we work from the top, it goes to the deep. It goes two ways.
I had also this change with my arm. I remember I had like a pinky scar, just one of the 4 on my wrist. And really it started to change, and quite quickly. It was like maybe in like a week or 2, I have found like, oh my God, it's like white like my skin. It's hard to see now, really. When I look at it, it's not so obvious. It was like a funny experience for me, to be honest, with these scars. I also remember that the depth when the scars, I do it a little bit like bigger. The scars are sometimes like this, like a valley, and you can like change it and get it more on the level of the skin which is around it. It was also, I had it with many clients which had surgeries on the hips or knees, and also on the belly. There were like scars which were like going like this. And it's also just the aesthetical level of it. Yeah. And just about these lip scars. So we humans, I was studying a book about pain, and it was interesting that if violinist injures his arm, it's much more a big deal when we compare it to like a footballist or like a soccer player. When he injures his arm, okay, it's okay. My legs are important. So the importance is different for each person. It depends, right?
That's true.
Very different meaning. All right. So, and what can we expect from the ScarWork training? What is it? What is like the container, or what it contains, maybe?
So usually the basic ScarWork training is 4 days. And on the first day, I talk a little bit about the theoretical background, about wound healing, about latest research. And that's a presentation that gets longer every time, because I have been to a conference recently and there were surgeons and scientists and body workers, and there was so much nice information and collaboration with people that I still try to fit that into that hour of presentation without losing too much of the other stuff. So there is to get a full picture. And then I will be doing a session on someone who has a scar, so people can see what that looks like. And then after the first break, we go step by step through all the techniques that Sharon has developed. And I, in the meantime, have a few that I do so frequently that I started to show them as well. And it's not about following exactly what I do with my hands, but to get a feeling for what you can do with scars. So in the end, your own hands will work the way it's good for your hands and what it's good for the scar. But I somehow introduce you to that way of working. And then people will work on each other as long as they have scars. So the participants will exchange sessions on their scars. And on the following days, we have people from the outside coming in. So we have real people with scars, with actual scars, because scar work you can only do on scars. If you do that on healthy skin, it feels a bit odd. And after some time, people say, just go away. I don't want that. So, but on scars, that's great. So we need people who have scars. And that is the main thing of the workshop, that you keep working on scars. I will be there. If it's a big class, I have an assistant so that everyone gets very close supervision from people. I will show with my hands and will show, see, there's something harder. Here's a scar that you can't see, that is underneath, that's on the peritoneum, because my hands know all this, and then you find it as well. So it speeds up the learning of the participants. And after these 3 rounds of having models, and I think another time where I show a session, a demo session, people feel confident to go home and work on scars the next day. So it's really a manual skill that is different from a technique as we know it from physiotherapy. It's different from structural work as we know is in Rolfing. And Sharon says the scar work is like speaking a new language in the field of fascia. So it's really a different way of using the hand. Also, this soft approach, in a way, slow is the fastest way to get there, I like to say, because usually we want to go and do it fast, and then a lot of things happen. No, here we have time. We can dedicate our time to one thing. We don't have to go everywhere. And if Rolfers are there, sometimes it's just Rolfers or people who know about structural integration. We also look at, is there a need for integration afterwards? For example, if you have a scar on the knee, and people then stand up, the knee is different in weight bearing, it's different in the contact to the ground, so there might be a bit of an imbalance between the 2 legs, and as a rolfer you know how to quickly balance that again. So we will have a look at this as well. Yeah, and then you get a certificate, and then you're free to do what you already know how to do, and how much fun it is. And usually, even though it's like scars and and there's all that trauma and all these stories, but it's the most funny workshop that I teach. So after these model rounds, the participants are happy, especially after the first round, because they managed to do it. So there's a bit of adrenaline, endorphin in the room, so I could do it. But the clients, because they're so happy about the changes, and then the next 2 rounds, the participants know already, okay, I managed once, I can do it twice. And every time afterwards, everyone's smiling, everyone's beaming. That's so nice. It's like, like Christmas trees. They're all glowing afterwards. It's really amazing how much we can do with that work and how happy it makes the participants and also the model clients who are coming. It's really great. I don't have any other workshop where this happens continuously every time.
And it's perfect. I'm looking forward. I wonder why is it I want to see this feeling when I'm in the room and like, well, what is happening? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
All right. All right, Andrea. I'm very thankful that you took of your time, took a bit of your time to have this talk with you. And I'm looking for end of May, almost end of May. It's, I think, I need to look in the calendar. I forgot it. 2020, we have it 23 to 25, 26. I no, is it? Oh, sorry, this is no. It's from 23 to 26. This is 4 days. May 2024. I'm very much looking forward to see you.
I'm looking forward to come to Bratislava for the first time.
Yeah,
Gonna be wonderful.
I'm very happy. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Andrea. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.